Cool. All right. Recording started. So welcome everybody to the SoCal PowerShell user group here in December 2021, the last meetup of the year. Thanks everybody who's attended before. Welcome everybody who's new. So tonight we have Heiko Brenn here from ScriptRunner. He is a PowerShell enthusiast and product expert at ScriptRunner, the PowerShell management company. He's been working in the IT industry for 25 years in a number of different roles like IT admin, consultant, and product manager. And as you can see behind him in his free time, he's a musician, and you might hear him playing drums once in a while. So he is a returning presenter for us. He presented on ScriptRunner before, and I'm sure we're going to see some great new improvements to the product that have been developed since the last time he came. So thanks, Heiko, for joining us, and take it away.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. Hello everybody. So I want to talk about develop, manage, and delegate PowerShell like a pro. So I'm going to show you a lot about our solution. I'm going to start with a few slides, but then we're going to go into the solution and show you how things are working. Before I start, just to let you know, at the end of the session, we're going to give away 2 Amazon gift cards, $50 each. And so I'm going to ask 2 random questions, and then the first of the attendees who is typing the right answer into the chat is going to win a Amazon gift card. All right. So short introduction to our company. So yeah, with ScriptRunner, we are based in Germany, and we are into PowerShell management. Here you see a couple of our team members. Actually, we grew quite a bit this year. So this is me. So you can get in touch with me on the usual channels, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on GitHub. Actually, I also gonna upload the presentation on my GitHub repo. I'm actually going to copy my contact information into the chat right away. So if you're going to have questions afterwards and stuff like that, you can just get in touch with me. Yeah, and what have we left here? Yeah, we're very much into the supporting the community, supporting people starting with PowerShell, and so one of the things that we are doing, we have this PowerShell poster, which is something that you can put on your wall, and it's like the get help for your office wall, so to speak. So you can go to our website, you can order it, and we send it around the world. You also get a PDF version of it, and I'm also going to copy that link into the chat. So in case you're interested, okay. I have that poster. I just read. I hate that poster. Okay. Great to see that people already have this poster, and hopefully. And by the way, we just also published PDF cheat sheets for PowerShell and Teams and PowerShell and Exchange just a couple of weeks ago. So in case you don't have this cheat sheets, I'm also going to paste that into the chat as well. The Teams one is, I think, just came out 2 weeks ago, and for Exchange, I think around September. So in case you don't have this too, you can also get that from there. All right, and as we know, number one, we have Christmas season. That's why I have this stupid little hat, which makes it pretty warm. So I think I just keep it up, take it off here. We also kind of celebrate the PowerShell anniversary. Some people say it's much older than 15 years. So you might have seen that picture from the Vikings where it looks like they have the PowerShell sign in it, but maybe that's not really true. But it's 15 years, so I would like to start just with a little video I made, which is on YouTube as well. So just to celebrate the 15 years of PowerShell awesomeness before we actually dive into the actual topic. So hopefully the audio is working as well. So I'm going to start.
Hey everybody, this is Jeffrey Snover. PowerShell 7 is the 20-year story of preparing you for drama. PowerShell is all about you. You learn PowerShell, and your value will continue to appreciate over time. The sacred vow. The sacred vow.
The inventor of PowerShell, Jeffrey Snover.
Happy days. Okay.
All right. Yeah, so thanks to Jeffrey who allowed me to use his quotes, which is great. Oops, okay. I think one time is okay, it's enough. Okay, yeah, so to start off, why does it make sense to think about a PowerShell management solution on top of PowerShell? So basically, why is ScriptRunner there? What's the idea? So I want to start with that. So what I see with organizations using PowerShell, I put it here like, okay, there are two ways of using PowerShell. So one is having two pictures. One is having your scripts that you wrote yourself or maybe others wrote, and you have them, I don't know, in your storage somewhere in the UNC path or in your emails or in your local hard drive or on OneDrive or whatever. So what that means is that, okay, because you exactly know where these tools are and what they do, you can go there and use it to spin up a new VM, create a new user, start an onboarding, offboarding process, changing permissions and stuff like that, which is great because you have all the knowledge to work with PowerShell, to create the scripts, you have the permissions to do all that. But to use PowerShell on a broader range to really make it something that maybe is really accessible to other people, maybe in your whole organization. The idea of ScriptRunner is to change that left picture into what we see on the right side, which means having everything organized properly in a secure way, so you can exactly know, okay, where is the script and the latest one to do something in your backend systems, and you can start also delegating the usage of that tools, of that scripts. And so that's the overall idea when it comes to what ScriptRunner is all about. So it's really about simplifying the way you develop, manage, and delegate your PowerShell scripts. Now, what that means is that we're talking about standardization. We're talking about making sure everybody uses the same scripts that hopefully has been tested somewhere, and then it goes into production. One of the key aspects here, really, and that's what you're going to see when we look at the solution, is centralization. Everything that we need to run PowerShell successfully, the scripts, the modules, the credentials, the connections to the backend systems, everything is done from a central place, which also, of course, includes security about where to store the credentials, how to make the scripts available to users in a secure way. And one aspect really also here is to make that whole solution accessible, not just for people who are into PowerShell already, but also for people maybe in help desk or maybe in the line of business who are going to be able to use it, maybe even without knowing that it is PowerShell in the background, which means one of the ideas, one of the things that we're doing with ScriptRunner is automatically, without extra coding, translating any kind of script into something that is just a web user interface. And I'm going to show you that quite a lot, because that's if you have attended the last year's sessions, in the meantime, we created a whole new web-based, role-based portal for all that front-end functionality to actually use that scripts. And so one of the examples, and what you will see also here, is that it's just a simple input form on any kind of website. And in the background, it's ScriptRunner who takes care of all the different bits and pieces that are necessary to make everything work, as I just said, like scripts and modules and stuff like that. But it's nothing that somebody from the front end perspective needs to know. So that's one of the key aspects why with such a solution, the great stuff that you already do with PowerShell can be something that everybody actually can use in your organization. And so this accessibility really plays an important role. And because of the centralized nature of ScriptRunner, it becomes very easy to monitor and to have dashboards to find out, okay, what script has been executed, but who started it, or who triggered actually the execution. Did something go wrong? How long did it take? Was there an issue with connecting to the backend systems and stuff like that? And so what we're also going to show you is there are three ways of triggering the scripts with ScriptRunner. One is interactively. We already saw a little example here with this screenshot. The second one is the scheduled approach for housekeeping processes and stuff like that. And then a third one, of course, is using a REST API, our connectors, so you can integrate ScriptRunner into your workflows, into your infrastructure, so that other systems also can make use of triggering scripts in a centralized and a secure way. And that could be a workflow system, a monitoring system, ITSM system, all kinds of platforms that are able to talk REST. And even if they're not talking REST, I'm going to show you there is also a possibility to do it in a different way to communicate with ScriptRunner. So that's the integration part. And so what the key aspect really is, it's all starts with the scripts and the modules. So they're in a central place. Of course, you can synchronize them with things like GitHub or TFS or Azure DevOps, but they're in a central place. So that's already simplifying the whole process, and you know where the new scripts have to be, and if scripts have to be updated, you know where to go to. And the second step is then, number one, thinking about the credentials. So there are two ways to manage these credentials, again, centrally, of course. The built-in one is they're stored on our ScriptRunner solution, on our ScriptRunner server, or on your ScriptRunner server if you run it. The second possibility is using password servers. So at the moment, we support 3 password servers: CyberArk, Pleasant, and Psychotic, no matter if it's on premises or in the cloud. So in this scenario, the credentials are not, of course, they're not in the script, God forbid. In this case, they're not even on the ScriptRunner box. In this case, what ScriptRunner will do is anytime the credential is needed to establish a connection to the backend, we're going to ask this password wall. We need that credential for a particular user based on an ID, typically, of course. And then we get this information, we establish the connection to the backend system, and once a script has been processed, no information will be stored in ScriptRunner, so everything will be kept in this centralized password wall. So that's of course, from the security perspective, a very good solution. And also thinking about a scenario where you might end up in the future having multiple instances of ScriptRunner. Of course, having a centralized solution for your passwords makes perfect sense, because you don't want to maintain credentials on each and every local box. When we talk about permissions, which means talking about delegation, talking about people in help desk, maybe a lot of business people should be allowed to do certain things. Of course, you don't want to make these people become global admin in your Office 365 tenant, or in your Azure environment, or in your Active Directory, or in your Exchange environment. And so what happens when you use PowerShell together with ScriptRunner, it's always ScriptRunner who is executing the scripts, who needs to have access to the scripts, to the modules, to the credentials, and to the backend system. So that's why we call it the execution proxy down here. So that's really where the scripts are executed. And then we have on the other side, for example, the users over here. that you might want to allow to do certain things, to start an onboarding process, create a new VM, changing permissions, creating a new team or a new SharePoint site or whatever. And oops. So based on that, these users don't need to have any connection to these backend systems. Also, of course, they don't need to have any permissions in this backend system, because you decide inside of ScriptRunner, based on the delegation, what these users should be allowed to do. And so by separating the execution of PowerShell together with all the logistics and the delegation on the other side when it comes to the user, of course, enables you now to really think about, okay, now I can delegate things in a secure way without giving people privileged permissions. And so that's a very important aspect. The other one, of course, is coming back to the accessibility. It has to be easy, right? And so again, what we're doing is we're in real time, we're looking into the scripts, we're looking into the synopsis, we're looking into the param block to find out, okay, what kind of parameters do we have? How should they be displayed? Should they be displayed at all? Because you can also configure and manage what kind of parameters are predefined in the background, and you just hide them from the user. Here we see an example. There in the background, we have the new teams commandlet, and it has dozens of parameters, but we only see 3 of them: name, description, and members. And that's because in the background, in the configuration in ScriptRunner, we have decided that's the only 3 things that we want to show to the user, because that's the only thing that really needs attention and the interaction with the user. Everything else, security settings, private channels, public channels, do you want to allow Giphies, all that stuff, it is there, it's in the background, and it's going to be used when we execute the scripts, but it's nothing that we have to bother the user with. And so that's a very, I think, very, very good way to manage what the users are seeing. And in case of you have multiple teams and multiple groups, and so another group might need to have additional things to configure, you can do that. You can just use what we call, this is an action, what we see in ScriptRunner action. You can just duplicate that, and you can say, okay, now for this group of people, I also going to display additional parameters. The underlying script stays completely the same, because you have this management layer, which is ScriptRunner, and there you decide what you're actually going to show to the user and to different groups. And so that's kind of where it already starts to simplify the way you handle your PowerShell scripts, because you don't have to maintain every change for different people, for different groups inside of your scripts. And so step by step, you can delegate all kinds of use cases based on your scripts to help those people, to end users. And again, compared to what I could show you last year, it became even easier, because you can even integrate this ScriptRunner actions into existing websites. I'm going to show you how that looks like in a minute. Yeah, and then coming back to the integration piece, you can not just use ScriptRunner interactively and schedule, but also you could say, okay, I have a service now, I have a SAP, I have a monitoring system, and they should allow to trigger scripts as well in maybe if you have approval processes, or if, let's say, there's a monitoring system and the sensors detects an error and the solution is to run a script, then that could be triggered in ScriptRunner. And so what we know, of course, many systems already have some kind of scripting interface, PowerShell interface. Still, we see customers kind of centralizing that in ScriptRunner, because then they know everything that goes around has to do with PowerShell is done in ScriptRunner. So ScriptRunner becomes this centralized hub of all PowerShell activities, so to speak. All right, so with this, I would switch to my VM. And I guess I have to log in again. Yes, I'm going to do that. Okay, so let me just see if we have some questions already in the chat. Doesn't look like it. Okay, so if you have any questions during the session, try to keep an eye on the chat. Yeah, so I want to start with the front end, so to speak. So with the consuming part of what you have done with your scripts, which means we are looking at the new portal that we created, and which means I think we have a much cooler way of presenting what you have done, what you can do with your script. So each tile here represents a use case where behind that is an action, and that contains a script. And so you can see now you can configure your actions with icons, so to make it easier for the user to identify that, okay, this is something that has to do with Exchange, there is something that has to do with Teams, and stuff like that. And so, for example, if we have, I think we saw one example in one of the slides where it's about managing the out of office, where again we have a script in the background. And so what we see here now, here I am logged in as a user, Tina, and she's just a help desk user. Maybe it could be someone in HR, because maybe that could be a setting out of office for somebody who calls in sick. Might be a task for somebody in help in HR. So what we see here is the user interface that says, okay, select a user or maybe multiple users. Then I can pick a notification template. So instead of typing any stuff in the background, I have already a notification template. And then I configure the start date and end date, depending on what I know already about this person and how long it's probably going to be sick, for example. So again, it's just input form. And so what we saw here already, here we saw a date and time picker, which means in the script, we have a date time parameter, which we automatically translate into a date picker, for example. And so I'm going to start that to see what's going to happen. In the meantime, I want to show you another way of using that, and then I'm going to show you how that can be configured. So this is our new portal. Another way of using PowerShell in the background is you could also simply embed this action into any kind of website. So here, I have the exact same action with the exact same. I think somebody should.
Yeah, I'll mute them.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, so here we have the exact same use case, starting configuring an out of office notification with the exact same parameters, input, but now it's just a widget, so to speak, in some kind of website. And so what you can do now with the ScriptRunner with the new version is each action has a unique ID, and based on this ID, you can say, okay, I want to embed this action 145 into that portal. And of course, it's only going to work if I have the right permissions to do that. But based on that, any kind of activity, any kind of use case could be just embedded into maybe a SharePoint website or whatever website it might be. So here it's for creating a new VM, which I'm also going to show you how that works, for example. Or I don't know, maybe it's something about managing Power Apps or whatever the use case might be. You can just put that into any kind of website, or maybe it's something about Active Directory services, password reset and stuff like that, or maybe creating new users based on an onboarding process. Everything can be really become very easy for the user to work with. And in this case, so really nobody needs to know anything about the PowerShell in the background. And so here we can see now, going back to what we just started. So, okay, this action obviously got executed successfully. So we come back with a nice little report, which you can manage also what kind of information you would like to show to the user once that's been done. So you can format this with HTML, which also means that might be use case that you might want to use to create a more sophisticated report, maybe scheduled or maybe interactively, like this one here, which is an Active Directory report for my current configuration right here, which could be a use case where you say, okay, this should be something I want to give that to somebody in help desk, or a list of users where the password is going to expire or that has been locked or something like this. So it's really about making it as easy as possible. In another use case, maybe you want to allow somebody to create new VMs in Azure. Again, the new ACVM commandlet has many parameters, but we only see 4 of them. The name of a VM, maybe we're making here one example. Then I can choose the OS, I can choose the location, and I can choose the VM sizes. That's it. Again, because I want to control, I want to manage what these users are allowed to do. So don't spin up the biggest VM that's going to cost us $1,000 a day or something. Don't spin up VMs in a region where we are not working and stuff like that. So it's everything becomes very, very easy and secure because you manage what kind of information is visible right here. And now, now I'm going to switch the role. So here I am somebody in help desk. Maybe here I am somebody in the line of business, an end user. And now we're going to talk about, okay, how can I make that work? So what do I need in order to get all that stuff up and running? And that brings us to our admin app. And so everything starts with the scripts. So the scripts are stored here on my machine. By the way, we have many different scripts for many different platforms already ready to use on our GitHub repo. So if you go to github.com/scriptrunner/action-packs, maybe I should also type that, put that into the chat maybe. I think we have about 1,700 scripts or something that you can use. And actually, most of my scripts are really are coming from this repository. And what you can see here that we're talking about basic PowerShell, plus we add additional functionality. For example, here you can have a multi-language solution, which means if I am, okay, here, okay, the VM has been created, which is great. Actually, what I could also do now, because I've created this VM, I could start another action because I would like to see now the existing VMs that I'm responsible for in a resource group that I'm working with, for example. So that's something. So I can have multiple actions being used in the single step, for example. So now I can see I have created this new VM here, but there are also 2 others that are 3 and 2 that are running. And so if we have a scenario like the one with the out of office, so here I just switch the language, and based on the language, it's not just the name of this use case, but also the description, which is based on the scripts again. I can have this multi-language approach here as well. So that's something that you can see in many of our sample scripts. I think almost all of the scripts now. Then you can see we follow the best practice. So we have a synopsis. Yes, we have parametric descriptions. Maybe until now you said, who cares? We don't need that. Now thinking about the delegation part, that of course helps a lot for users who don't know what the $allow custom memes means, for example. So having a description obviously helps for this kind of users when we think about the delegation into this direction. Then we have the parent block, we have the actual code, and then you can see and I will come back to that as well. We have additional information that helps you to manage things like what is the information the user should see once a script has been executed. We also have information about which user actually triggered something, from which machine a particular action has been triggered, which helps you to also organize and integrate use cases where you want to do maybe using PowerShell remoting to do something on a Windows 10 machine where somebody wants to have a Teams cache being deleted. And if we have time, I'm also going to show you that example, because that's something that you can do based on the information that we get. Somebody clicks on a tile, we know the IP, we get the information about the IP address of this machine. So we can, if PowerShell remoting is allowed, we can remote into this machine. All right, so yeah, you can go to this action pack GitHub repo here, take a look around, download the scripts. I'm also going to show you that, so here we have these existing scripts. Now in the new portal, coming back to this one, you can already, and this is something new compared to last year as well, you can even use the web interface to look at the scripts that you have in your configuration. So here I have, again, this script. I can take a look at the script that I have here on my machine. I can see, okay, there are already a few changes I've done. I can make some diffs. I can see, I can take a look at the comparison to, like, okay, what kind of changes has been made in a script. I can then also go back to a earlier version if that's necessary, and I can actually edit the script. So I can take a look at, I can take a look at the code. I can make changes to it, and then check the script in again. So what happens is now, right away, these changes that you're making in your scripts become available in the solution. So if I'm refreshing the page, whatever I've changed, maybe I've added a parameter, or maybe I switched the parameter from mandatory to not mandatory, that will immediately take effect, which is a pretty cool thing to do things on the fly. Of course, if you happen to have your script development process being done in GitHub, of course, you would not enable this option here to actually check out and check in scripts, because you would like to have that being happening in GitHub or Azure DevOps. But you still might want to have at least allow, as an administrator, to look at the script to see what's actually going on, and maybe to see the change history or where it's actually being used, coming back to the ScriptRunner actions. And you can even, because I showed you this GitHub repository, you can even import scripts directly from our GitHub repo. Here you see this button, ScriptRunner action packs, and you can say, okay, there is a script, and to create maybe a new address list, and I want to make this available on my machine. So here I see my local directories, and I can choose also multiple scripts. I can get a preview of that script, and then I can import that script directly via the portal. So no need also to modify scripts. I no need to go, I don't know, to VS Code or to the ISE or stuff like that. Everything, if you have the right permissions, which would be you're a ScriptRunner administrator and you have permissions to work with that script, you can do that directly, and you can even start creating new scripts, also based maybe on templates. We have different ways of scripts, or different kinds of scripts, and so that's why we provide templates here as well. So that's really already simplifying the whole process of managing your scripts, modifying scripts. And so again, compared to last year, we didn't have this functionality here, but now with the new portal, we have all that script editor options right here. So coming back to this view, so what you see, I'm kind of jumping around between the admin app and the portal. That's because at the moment we are in this transition phase. So we are on on the journey to move everything from the admin app into the portal. We are, I would say, halfway there, but it's still things that are not in the portal. So that's why you will see me switching back and forth. But at least latest, I think mid of next year, everything that you see here in the admin app will also be in the portal. So we have the scripts, right? Great. The second step is the credentials. So to establish our connections to the background system. And so, as I said, these credentials can be stored locally, or like in this case for my Exchange credential, it is stored in my Pleasant server, which means I only have the ID of this credential. And so what happens is that ScriptRunner is going to ask Pleasant, I need a credential for this ID so I can connect to my Exchange server. So that's how it works. So if there is password rotation going on in Pleasant, I always get the right credential in that point in time when I need it. You also can see there are other options, for example, support of SSH keys, talking about PowerShell 7 and Linux and macOS. Of course, that's something that you can do. You can also see we are kind of working on a implementation for the secrets management module. It's still a work in progress, but I hope that's going to be available pretty soon. And so, yeah, so we have the scripts, we have the credentials, and then we have what we call targets. Targets are the actual backend systems that we want to talk to. So for example, Exchange, coming back to this example from just now. So here I have an Exchange target that says, okay, that's my machine. That's the credential I'm going to use, or ScriptRunner is going to use anytime we're doing something with Exchange. And having this mapping between, okay, what's backend system and what's the credential means you don't have to have that information in your scripts. Like, okay, it's an Exchange, so to start the implicit remoting session, we know that because it's an Exchange target. So everything is done by ScriptRunner. So that's already also means you don't have to put that into your scripts. The same is true for other targets like Office 65, for example. Here, maybe we take a look at this one here. Because here, for example, you can configure, okay, what kind of backend system you want like to talk to and what kind of services you want to use with the target, like maybe Exchange Online, maybe Teams. And if you have your certificate-based authentication ready, you can use that, for example, and we will see more coming up here as Microsoft is moving obviously more and more towards this certificate-based authentication. So that again helps to simplify the things that you do in your scripts, because with O65 we know what kind of connection we need to, what kind of module we need to load, and then we have, of course, we have other targets. So if we look at the target types, everything that you can do with PowerShell local execution, PowerShell remoting, cloud services, you can combine targets into collections, which helps pretty much for things like housekeeping processes where you have maybe 70 or I don't know 120 different backend systems. You don't want to select them each and every one individually. You could just put them into a collection, and if there is additional systems, you can just put them in there, and then later on you just choose the collection instead of the individual servers, for example, which is very helpful when it comes to using, especially helpful for all these housekeeping processes. What you also can do is that inside of, and that's also something that's pretty new, is that you can configure inside of ScriptRunner if you have multiple teams using ScriptRunner from the admin perspective, and you want to make sure that the Azure team is not messing around with the Exchange teams, scripts, or credentials, or targets, or whatever. So we have this concept of ownership inside of ScriptRunner. So each object can be either available for every administrator in ScriptRunner, or you can say, no, this is something that only belongs to a particular team. And so that allows you to be more granular when it comes to, okay, yes, we have admins, but we also have admins only for particular teams or for particular platforms. And that's really something that helps you to organize, especially in bigger environments where you have multiple teams using ScriptRunner. Yeah, and then we have our actions, and the actions, these are the actual use case. So we already looked at two from the delegation perspective, from a help desk and end user perspective, and I want to start with showing you both of these examples here. So one that we looked at was the Azure example, where we can take a look at the configuration, which means number one, we decided that, okay, for which Azure subscription this action should be available. And then here we see all the parameters that are available. And because we're the administrator, we're in the edit mode, we see all parameters. Also the ones that we didn't see when we started it as a help desk person. That's because here we have all kinds of parameters that we have pre-configured. And then we said we hide this from the input form because nobody needs to change the resource group, because if somebody is only allowed to spin up VMs in this particular resource group, that's what we do, talking about standardization. Or we always want to have static IP addresses, for example. So these are all the things that you can pre-configure and then say, okay, this is nothing that the user has to worry about. We just put that in here, and that's our default. Then we saw two drop-down lists. One was for the location, and that's where our queries come into the picture, which I'm going to show you as well, where we said, okay, there is a list of available Azure locations, and there was a list of available VMs. And so the idea really here is, instead of having, if I'm disabled that, of course, instead of just having an input field where everybody could type in, like, I don't know, standard v2, whatever the right information would be like. Number one, we need to know that, right? And that also would allow us to create, I don't know, the Godzilla Beast VM. And so of course we don't want that, right? If we're thinking about delegation. So that's why we can select this query here. And in case of different teams with different requirements, you could say, okay, I have two different actions delegated to different groups. And so one team can select two types of VMs, but if it's somebody from a development team, they should be allowed to also spin up a more expensive one, because that's their business need. That's what they need for their job. And again, you don't have to make any change in your scripts to do that, because that's something that is being done within ScriptRunner. And so that really simplifies a lot of the processes here. And looking at this other scenario here, this out of office scenario, let's look at this scenario again. So number one, we see there is a parameter set for different use cases, which kind of course, obviously defines what kind of parameters are visible. Now here again, we have queries. So we saw out of office, we saw my Office 65 mailboxes, and we saw a list of notifications. And again, we have a couple of parameters that we didn't see, because this is something that we just pre-configured. And this query here, for example, is a scripted query, and it's a query that is being cached. And I'm going to show you why that makes sense and how that actually works. And so this is how you create this, what we call actions. And so once everything has been configured, you can say, okay, now I've tested it, I want to delegate that. And this is where you can then say either, or typically you have your Active Directory groups, or you have your Azure Active Directory groups, which is again something that we added since I had the last session last year. Now you can directly also have Azure authentication, Azure AD authentication used, or you can use that in ScriptRunner. And there are additional Azure integrations that I'm also going to show you. So here I can decide, okay, I'm going to delegate that to one or multiple teams. And so, which means if I have done that, then this action is going to appear right here in the list of my available actions, where, by the way, I can, I can sort that and categorize that. I can also say I have actions that I need quite often, so I can pin them. So every time I log in, that's what I'm going to see first. And so this is where I'm starting to delegate an action. And so as we already started 2 actions, and because I said we have this centralized approach, I can actually, as an administrator, I can see all the activities of users or of systems that have triggered scripts via ScriptRunner. So here I can see that there is this user, Tina. She started, and I can already see the result as well, so because there was a report being created. And I can see, okay, she started this action, and I can take a look at the report, so I can see what actually happened. I can see who triggered it, what was the action, what was the target, and I can see all the details. So in case something went wrong, I could see that here as well. So everything that is executed via ScriptRunner, you can see that in this centralized dashboard, which of course is a great thing because you get the full picture of all the PowerShell activities, and you could say, okay, I only want to see the things that went wrong, for example. So I can take a look at this just to find out, okay, what's actually happening here. So here, because my local Exchange server was not up and running, so I got an error here. So this dashboard really helps you to have this complete overview. You can see the details about it. You can select different actions to kind of see also the differences maybe between 2 executions to find out, okay, what was the difference between execution 1 and execution 2. So that helps you to also debug things. So if something goes wrong, so this report and this dashboard really are very, very helpful here. And so that's true for all that. Sorry, for all this execution of all kinds of actions, no matter if it's interactive. That's what we looked at until now, but also the other types of executing scripts, which I'm going to show you as well in a minute. What I also want to show you is that how these queries are actually look like, because I think they are really, really important and helpful, because this is how you manage what people are able to select instead of typing, right? Avoiding typos and giving you the possibility to manage whatever is available to this user. So there are very simple queries, like static ones, like this one here. So we saw this in this out of office scenario, where on the left side, that's what we saw: training, vacation, sick leave, work from home. On the right side, you can see the actual technical content, what we are using when we execute the commandlet, which also in this case includes start date, end date variable, because we have a date time parameter. You can, in this case, already make sure that also the text is up to date when you change and when you configure start and end date, for example. Then we had an example where we saw this list of my mailboxes of my Office 365 tenant, and so that's this query here. That's actually a scripted query. It also could be a different one, but in this case, it's a scripted query. And by the way, you can test each query. And so what we see here as well is that, because this is a query that comes back with data from a cloud service, which means to get this information might take a little bit to connect to the system and to get this data back and then present it to the user. And to avoid waiting time for the user, you can cache these queries. You can say, okay, this query should work, that should run in the background every hour, so that the user when it opens up in the dialog, this information is there right away. And you can see what's the actual content at the moment. So here we see the list that ScriptRunner knows right now. So we have a cache information from two hours ago. So that's the content that is available. And if that's a more dynamic environment, then you could say, okay, this query should run every 10 minutes. The idea really here is to make sure the user don't have to wait. It's about the user experience. So they already get a populated list of mailboxes, of users, of computers, of whatever the use case might be. And so with this, you can create all kind of queries. And something that we added last year is that you can also have direct Azure connection. You can have graph queries being configured directly. And if I'm lucky, I have a system up and running where I can show you that. Not responsive. Okay, not responding. Doesn't matter. So the idea is, if I just show you an example here, you can have direct queries going on, for example, against Microsoft Graph, which is great because the performance is really awesome when you use the graph directly, as long as you have the data there that you need to display. So you instead of just creating a scripted query, you can directly have Azure query for getting some data from the graph, or like maybe you want to have some specific users. You can have filters, and so that's really helpful as well. Especially, yeah, as I said, around this around Azure, and then you can have, of course, usual suspects like Active Directory queries, which helps you also to kind of lead the user through maybe different steps to get to the right information. What do I mean by that? It is, we're talking about cascading queries, which means you could say maybe the process is first a user can select from an OU, and then once the first selection has been done, then I can select a group, and then I see the members of this group. So this step-by-step approach can help in many use cases. Maybe, I mean, here it's Active Directory, but in other use cases it might be VMware, like, okay, I select my vSphere environment, then I see my VMs, I select the VM, and then I can see the available snapshots because I want to maybe restore to a particular snapshot, for example. Or it's SharePoint farm, SharePoint sites, and whatever the information might be. So having this step-by-step approach really helps the user, and it helps you, of course, again, to manage what users are seeing. Meaning, if somebody by default is only responsible for a particular OU, that can be pre-configured in the background, and then we hide that from the user. So by default, they will only see the groups that from the OU that they are responsible based on their role, for example. Okay, there was something wrong. Anyway, Leland Sklar, maybe you know him. He has a very famous YouTube channel. He's from California, bass player, very famous. Long beard, looks like somebody from CC Top, but he's not. Anyway, yeah. So these queries really help the user, and it helps you to organize whatever is necessary to really start delegating and to make sure people are only seeing what they're allowed to see and select only what they should be allowed to see. Another scenario that you might have is that now, because I talked about the targets, and so a target can be Exchange, Active Directory, Office 365 or whatever, but you might have scenarios where maybe you start with doing something in Active Directory, and then additionally, your script wants to do something in Exchange or in Teams or in Office 365 because you have a hybrid scenario. And so what you can do, which hopefully I can I can find the right action, is you can have multiple credentials being used in a single configuration. So what does that mean? So that means that, okay, I have a target, and that maybe in this case, it's my Exchange server, but then I want to do something in Active Directory or in Teams or something like this. So what I can do is I can have a PS credential or a PS session, and I can select that and use that in my script. So again, I don't have to have this credential or session information in my script. I can put it into the configuration, and then I can work with the variable, and the information, the variable is filled by the configuration information that is in ScriptRunner, using the sessions, using the using the credentials. So here we have the available targets, for example. So this also allows you to do things if you have a script that happens to do things in different systems. All right, so this is kind of, okay, what you can do when it comes to the interactive approach from a help desk perspective, using our widget or something like this. Another use case might be, I think I mentioned that briefly, is, okay, you might have scenarios where a user on the client should be allowed to do something. So in this case, it's about cleaning a Teams cache on this machine. So here I have my Teams up and running, and until now there is no button in Teams where I can say, okay, clean my local Teams cache. In the background, it's like 6 or 7 folder, and they're going to be deleted and stuff like that. So typically nothing that you would like the user to really do manually. So what I have here is an action that hopefully, if I press on that, will start an action on the ScriptRunner box, going to my local machine here and closing Teams, and then deleting these folders that make this Teams cache. And okay, okay, maybe I went a little bit too far with this notification here, but you get the idea, right? So here I get some information back. Okay, the Teams cache has been deleted successfully. And again, if I'm now going back to ScriptRunner, looking into the dashboard, we can do it in the portal. We can do it still also in the admin app. We should see that maybe, let's see, let's go into this view here. Yeah, we can see that here again, this user Tina, she started a action to clear this Teams cache. And so what it actually did, it went out to this machine and use PowerShell remoting to do whatever is necessary to delete these folders over there. Now, if we are looking into that script, I want to show you that as well, which is the one for Teams. Maybe look for cache. No, let me search for it. Where is the clear Teams cache? That could be the one. Let's take a look at this one here. Yeah, so here I want to come back to this additional information that we provide. So here we have this SRX environment variables SRX started IP. So we know, okay, Tina, she clicked on the tile on this machine, and then we translate it into the full host name, and then we are invoking and connecting to this machine, and then doing whatever is necessary. So this is something that helps you to do things on the client side, as long as PowerShell remoting is possible. And as I said, there is a number of additional parameters that we provide to control behavior of your scripts. Right. Okay. So this is everything around doing things interactively. The other thing, of course, is you might have scheduled tasks, and quite often actually organizations come to us where they say our priority one is we want to kind of centralize all these decentralized task scheduling things that happens on, I don't know, multiple dozens of boxes. We never know if it really works because there's no real feedback loop and stuff like that. And so what you can do with each action, you can say, okay, I have an action to create a report. I can do this interactively, but I also allow that to happen every Friday, for example, or over the weekends if it's housekeeping or stuff like that, or maybe multiple times a week or multiple times a day. I can then also configure, I want to get some notification if something goes wrong, which makes perfect sense if we have the scheduled actions here. And so based on that, an action that is scheduled can also be interactive one, like, okay, I know the report is created on Friday, but I need it now. And now we have Tuesday or Wednesday for my part. And so, okay, I can click on the tile and the report will be created right away. Again, it's the same script in the background. It's just the configuration in ScriptRunner where you say, okay, this should be a scheduled one. And one that I have here actually is pretty interesting because that kind of shows how, for example, you could combine your CI/CD pipeline, your PowerShell, or your code management that goes on in Git with ScriptRunner, because this is a scheduled action that goes out to a GitHub repo into a particular branch to find out, is there a new script? Is there an updated script? And if that's the case, it's being synchronized to that ScriptRunner box right here. And so this is another good example of using the scheduled action. So, and the third one is using automation in the sense of having connectors that I'm going to allow to talk to ScriptRunner and to trigger actions. So in my case, I have a PRTG monitoring system up and running, and I'm allowing this machine to connect to ScriptRunner. It has to authenticate because based on that, we check if the system is allowed to trigger whatever action this would like to trigger. And so whenever there is a sensor detects an error, and then in PRTG, I have configured a connection to ScriptRunner. And what that does in my case is it is kind of, it's restarting a service, but it's also writing information into a particular Teams channel. Where if something is down, for example, here it says my domain controller is down, PRTG, which is not really true, but anyway. So here, this is information that is coming from this source system from PRTG, and we are using that in this case to push messages into this particular Teams channel here based on the webhook of this channel. I think there are other examples where we just put in some reports, for example. So this is all this stuff could be triggered based on a connector, and we see a wide range of different scenarios because we're talking about a generic REST connector. So any system that is able to talk REST can be used, and even if the system maybe is not able to talk REST, we have a plan B, so to speak, which we call an email inbound connector. So in case the system is not able to talk REST, but it can send out email in a particular way, particular formatted way, that's also good for us. Then an email inbound connector can be used. So ScriptRunner is kind of monitoring an IMAP mailbox constantly to find out, is there a new ticket coming in that tells us, run this action with this parameters and with this parameter values. And then of course also coming back with information if something goes wrong, or also if the thing went smoothly, of course. And so this is how you can use ScriptRunner in a integrated way with all kinds of connectors. And we see SAP being connected to it, to ServiceNow, Jira, sometimes SharePoint workflows. You could even trigger things based on a Power App or a flow, for example. And That, of course, then means you have a different front end, so to speak, compared to what we see here right now, because here you're directly talking to ScriptRunner. So all the checks that we do, all the input validation that we do, that then, of course, that has to be done in the source system to make sure that the data that's being sent to us is correct and fits to what the script expects in the background. Right. Okay. So let's see. I think we covered most of it. Something else that we came up with since the last time I showed the solution is a statistic information in the sense of an efficiency dashboard, which means in each action, so for each use case, you can configure the number of minutes that is being saved compared to doing things manually. And so based on that, we calculate and the number of how often this action has been triggered, we calculate the time, and then you can also configure an hourly wage, and you can say, okay, and based on that, that's at least theoretically, maybe that's the time, that's the money, that's what we save by automating things. So in each action, which is also new to what we had last year, you have this property of, okay, number of minutes compared to the manual execution, and that helps. So that's, of course, something that sometimes at least is good to show to the managers, that they can see. So when they ask, okay, why did we actually start to automate? What are the benefits of it? So that might be helpful here. So this is this efficiency dashboard, and we also came up with a new monitoring widget here, which helps us to see activities in the background, especially if we have multiple servers and maybe you have pending and queued actions, or maybe queued queries, for example, especially for cloud backends. There you have the throttling policies, and then what we can do is if the number of connections, the threshold is being reached, and we can say, okay, now we pause and we queue that execution until another connection is possible. And if that's the case, you would see that here as a queued action, which means, okay, it's in the making, we're waiting to finish it, but maybe it's something that needs to go out to Office 65, and even maybe you have, increased this kind of threshold when it comes to the number of connections. You might reach that, and then we're not canceling it. We're putting it into a queue, and that's something that you can also see here in the new portal, as long as you, of course, an administrator. So here, because it's role-based, here I am logged in as an administrator. That's why I have all these possibilities. Again, if I'm just somebody in help desk, I'm logging in here, I have only the things that I'm really responsible for, and what I should be allowed to use. All right, so with this, I would switch to my presentation quickly just to see if we have some questions until now. Doesn't look like it. All right, so let's go back to the presentation. So by the way, so we talked about these action packs, right? So and I put it into the chat as well. So if you're interested, just go there. As I said, many different use cases, many different scripts that you might really find helpful. Yeah, so coming back to the overall idea of what we are doing with ScriptRunner. So the idea really is to have, of course, this awesome automation framework, which is PowerShell with all the underlying systems, and then putting ScriptRunner on top really allows you to, bring PowerShell onto a level where it is of course still something that you as an administrator are going to use, where you put in your scripts, where you also might want to simplify the scripting based on centralized library scripts that contain functions, which I didn't show you, but which is of course something that you can do as well, which also simplifies the whole process of developing, and then really enable people in help desk or end users to use it, and let's say to use PowerShell without even knowing it, most probably. And if you would like to test the solution yourself, and you say, okay, that sounds pretty interesting, but I want to have I want to have my own experience with it, you can go to our website. Let's go there quickly. And you can click here on Try Now. You can download the solution. So what you need is a VM and with an IIS. That's it. You can start using it. There's a 30-day trial license. You can, maybe I should also copy that into the chat. There's 30-day trial license where all the functionality is available, and if you need more time to test, you can always extend that license. And it says 2016, 2019, but 2022 is also supported, so you can do this as well. And you get support during the trial, of course. And we can also have, of course, an individual chat. So let's say you want to talk about your individual use cases and requirements and infrastructure security settings and stuff like that. I would be more than happy really to have a conversation with you about your individual things and what you would like to achieve with PowerShell together with ScriptRunner. Okay, so with this, I am at the end of my session. So before we quickly give away this to Amazon gift cards, I would really encourage you, if you have questions about the things that you saw, or maybe things I didn't show and you would like to know about, now is your chance to ask a question in the chat, or open up your mic and ask a question.
Yeah, feel free to raise your hand as well if you have a question, and we can moderate it that way. And I'll start it off, Heiko. I have a question about the passwords servers, that the different security servers that you support, or security clients you support. So is HashiCorp Vault one of those? And if it isn't, is there a way that you can write your own integration with ScriptRunner to call out to different password managers that may not be directly supported by ScriptRunner?
Yeah, great question. So at the moment, we support this three, CyberArk, Pleasant, and Psychotic. But as long as there is a way to connect to a Vault via maybe in a specific PowerShell module, which we see sometimes as customers. I know a few of them, they have a solution from a vendor in Australia. I forgot the name, of course, but they provide a module. So then what they do, they kind of use that to retrieve the credential, not via our password server connectors, but via the module of that vendor. And if that's possible, and maybe it's just really also using REST calls, and if that's possible with the HashiCorp solution, that would work as well. Yes.
Got it. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, but by the way, we are, as you saw, we are looking into the secrets management module support, which kind of opens up. I think there is already a possibility to use the secrets management module to talk. I don't know. I think there is a solution for HashiCorp as well, but then of course, obviously for Azure Key Vault as well. So once we have that ready, that will open up also for all the solutions that come from the community that is supporting the secrets management module. Yeah. All right. Do we have any additional question? Doesn't look like it. So maybe it's time to give away this two Amazon gift cards. And because it's almost Christmas, maybe I'm going to show you this while we are trying to find out. By the way, I did a song last year, scripting around the Christmas tree. It's on YouTube, but I'm going to re-record it because the vocals were not that good actually. Anyway, so yeah, I have two random questions, and one will be related to what we just discussed. So the first question would be, so the rule would be, okay, whoever is going to be the first in the chat to answer with the right, who's answering with the correct information will get a gift card. So the first question is, okay, from which country is a ScriptRunner? So I'm monitoring. So where ScriptRunner is coming from? Yep. Okay, we have a winner. We have a winner. The first one was Nelson Science. I don't know if hopefully I pronounce it correctly. Anyway, the best way is you can write me an email. I'm typing in my contact info. Okay, I pronounced it correctly. Very good. Okay, just write me an email so that we know, for which Amazon. I guess it's going to be US, but it also could be Canada. I don't know if there are different Amazon shops. So just let me know for which Amazon shop you would like that to be available. That would be great. Yeah, just shoot me an email. Excellent. Okay, and so the second question would be, and it comes back to what we just discussed, which is, I think, pretty cool, is how many password servers do we support officially at the moment? Yep, and we have a winner. Okay, Mark Weiss. Again, congratulations. And also, just write me an email so we have your information, and so our marketing team can send out Amazon gift card, and so you can do a little additional Christmas shopping, which is always a great thing, right? So yeah, congratulations to the two of you. Thanks a lot for attending this session. And I hope it was interesting for you. Again, if you need some additional info, get in touch with me. I will be more than happy to talk to you and maybe have individual sessions. And yeah, I would like to thank Matt. As I learned, it's the last session that you are going to host with the Southern California PowerShell user group. I think you did really a great job, and it was fun last year. It was even more fun this year. And thanks for everything that you did for the community, and maybe you also still, of course, going to do for the community. And as I said, if you are looking for sponsor to kind of sponsor the meetup costs, get in touch with me. We can always arrange something. We would be happy to support you there. And last but not least, have a great Christmas. Have a great end of the year, and let's hope for a better 2022. Yeah, thanks again. That would be it from my side. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Heiko. Thanks everybody else for coming as well. Appreciate the kind words as always. And yeah, I'm gonna reach out to the current manager of the group, and then I'll speak with you about the sponsorship moving forward. That would be very great. And of course, thank you for giving out the gifts at the end. That's very fun, and I'm sure everybody appreciates that. And ScriptRunner is really a great product, I must say. There's clearly care and time taken into developing that. So everybody that has a chance to evaluate that for your own organization, I highly suggest it. I think that is a really well-made product. So this recording will go up on YouTube probably within the next couple days, and I will send the link out to the group once it does.
Great. Thank you again, Matt. Thanks, everybody, for joining.
All right. Have a good night, everybody, or day in Heiko's case.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.